first thing we're going to look at with the Industrial Revolution impacting the United States is the changes that occurred that allowed industrialization to occur in the United States. So first we're going to see the transition from things being done by hand to things being done with machines. So the first blank says, during the Industrial Revolution, blank began to replace hand tools. All right? That is going to be factory machines. Machines are going to allow things to be done faster and easier. For example, if we were to go out to the football field and our job is to take the top layer of grass off, you had a shovel, I had a bulldozer, I'm going to get it done faster and I'm going to get it done easier because of the use of machines. Okay? The second thing is we're looking at the growth of industrialization. So a surge in industrialization during the late 1800s changes the country dramatically. We're going to add a little side note here, right? It is on your vocab sheet, so you'll have access to it there. But industrialization equals growth of business / industry. Right? So industrialized countries are going to have a strong economy, lots of factories, lots of jobs, through industry and business. Right? The next thing is the Bessemer process. Right? We're going to talk about how the steel industry gets revolutionized. Now, if you want the science behind it, Mr. Johnson will be more than ready to explain it to you. But simplest terms, it's the process of taking iron and turning it into steel. Right? Steel is going to be way more durable, it's going to be lighter, and it's going to be cheaper. So the Bessemer process makes the steel industry simply just flourish. So some of the notes we can put here is it's going to be cheaper than iron, right? It's going to increase production, and it's also going to increase uses, right? Skyscrapers. Before, you can only have buildings to a certain height when they were made from iron, but the implementation of steel allows the towering skyscrapers that we know in cities like Chicago and New York City. In terms of additional uses, you have the steel plow, which is going to be more durable. Barbed wire, we talked about that on the Great Plains. Okay, so railroad tracks, all new products that are going to benefit from the addition of steel. Okay, next we're going to look at what caused industry to grow in the United States. Now, for the next one I had, what are the 5 causes of economic growth? And then I gave you a hint, right? In your textbook, you have that huge graphic organizer on page 632 that kind of pinpoints 5 of them with an additional impact as well. So if you're looking at the graphic organizer, the first one is growing population. More people in the United States means more jobs. Right, so that's kind of your first factor. Second one goes along with the chapter we just finished, improved transportation, transcontinental railroads. So the easy transport of goods and services from one part of the country to the other is going to fuel industrialization as well. Number 3, new inventions. Right, this is going to be the time period of Thomas Edison and Alexander Graham Bell making all these new inventions. Each new invention is going to sprout out into its own industry and continue to impact industrialization that way. Number 4 is investment capital. We're going to look at the formation of corporations and how the influx of money through the selling of shares of ownership of corporations is going to fuel the growth of more business as well. Number 5 is government support. The government is going to try at all means to encourage industrialization, encourage the growth of new businesses, right, by allowing certain types of businesses to be around. The last part is natural resources, right? Yeah, that fuels industrialization, but they were present before the process started, so they're not really kind of in the same category as the other ones, but they definitely had some sort of impact. So if you're looking, forest, water, coal, iron, all those natural resources that the United States has an abundance of are going to play a role in this as well. Right? So there were your 5 causes of economic growth there. Then down at the bottom, I simply had identify 3 new inventions. Now your textbook listed a whole bunch. Okay, why don't you just focus in on a couple? Telephone would definitely be the one that most of you are going to jump on anyway. Right? The second one would be the light bulb. And the third, you had sewing machine, a typewriter was another one. But the important thing to know is that each of these new inventions are going to lead to new industries. Okay. Think about the cell phone. Think about how many different companies you have that are producing cell phones today. Before cell phones were invented, you didn't have any. Once cell phones were created, you had all these new businesses popping up producing cell phones. If you travel back to the turn of the century with the invention of the improvement of the automobile, right, you didn't have any of the car companies before that. Once you had the invention, you had all kinds of new businesses pop up outside of that. Right? And then up here, this graph is showing you, right, the patent system. Now, I have a thought in my head that if I can figure out the math and the science behind it, I'm going to invent it, and I'm going to make $1 million. Right? In order to invent something and profit from it, you have to apply for a patent. Right? So once I figure that out, I'm going to get my patent so nobody steals my idea. Which is simply just permission from the government, approval from the government, if you will, for you to be the sole person to benefit from that invention. So this graph is showing us the number of patents that are issued starting in 1869 and ending at 1900 to 1910. So in 1860 to 1869, we had about 60,000 patents that were issued. At the end of the graph, 1900, we had over 300,000 patents that were issued. So if you look at the general trend, okay, there's an increase in inventions during this period. Also improvements on existing products, right? That is showing you each new invention is going to be a new industry. Each new invention, new industry, back and forth.